People are so trapped in their mind that they've lost touch with the fact that a mind is built out of relationships. There's no such thing as the flow of thought without 2 points of sentience. So the thought always has to come from something that's conscious to something that's conscious. Otherwise, it's not consciousness. And because we are all inherently made of relationships between our cells, our glands, our organs, our systems, the spirits, the consciousness in each of them, and the water and the food and the air that we bring in from outside of us, this is all the condensation of God consciousness. It's all the embodiment of spirit and source. And I think people get so caught in religious idealism by memorizing things written on paper, but it doesn't take them into the union with Source and the realization that this is God's body. The universe is God's body, and it's alive, and it's part of us, and it's in us. And we can't be here without all of it. We can't be here without the air. We can't be here without the water. We can't be here without the earth. We can't be here without the sun, without the moon, without the warmth of our metabolism. And all of those things are made possible by all the relationships that we're engaging in. And so people get so caught in like you say, in the trying to pay their bills and dealing with, they spend most of their time in fear, but they don't realize that there's all this help in us and around us, and the depth of the wisdom. I mean, I've learned things from the plants and trees right here in my office that blew my mind,
Right.
and it's like, it makes life so much more rich and so much more full. And you feel, I found in my own life that as I got deeper and deeper into my connection to nature and to spirit, that I didn't need to be afraid because I never felt alone. I knew I had all this help around me. I mean, I spent a lot of time working with stones, and even the stones will talk to you and tell you things. And many of my friends or students that came to me to learn how to work with stones used to think I was crazy, but then after they spend, sometimes 4, 5, 6 months like stacking stones on the beach and emptying their mind, all of a sudden the stones start talking to them, and they call me up and say, "Oh my God, you're not going to believe what happened today." I'm like, finally you got there. That's why I call them the stone Buddhas,
Right.
I think, it would help the world, the people of the world, so much if they knew that there's so much support and there's so much wisdom and so much guidance, and that wisdom and guidance is telling us how to bring ourselves back into harmony with nature and the world. And here we are, hoping AI is going to fix the problem, or Donald Trump or somebody else. It's like, good luck. How's that work for you so far?
That doesn't work. That doesn't work. We always want to deify that which seems grander than us, to say that they're going to save us. But what we really need to do is we need to work on ourselves. I do a lot of reading, and I'm a lifelong learner. And one of the things that I just finished reading that really stood out to me, I was reading the Map of Consciousness because I love to read other people's methodologies. And one of the things that was stated in the book was, what is the opposite of ignorance? What is the opposite of And you would think it's wisdom, but it's not. It wasn't what he listed as wisdom. Do you know what he said the opposite of ignorance was?
Maybe emptiness?
It was humility.
Good, yeah.
It was humility.
Yeah.
And the reason it was humility is because that which we don't understand, that which we haven't grasped yet, right? The most ignorant thing that I could do is to shut down and say it doesn't exist, it's not good enough, it's this, it's that, it's the other, versus the humility of saying, okay, share with me, show me, and help me to understand.
Yeah, and I think what's important is really humility is a state of receptivity. Yes. Right? If one's in the state of being humble, they're saying, I acknowledge you, I accept, I'm listening, I'm present. And ignorance is often...
I'm shut down. It's like, I don't want to hear it.
Or it's the dark side of the I know mind, or hubris, right? It's like, plants that talk, you're crazy, it's like, oh really?
But in that receptivity, we're not reacting. And that's what's so important, because I love studying the masters, but every master has died some horrible death because they had information they wanted to share that the public wasn't ready for.
Right, it's true, very true.
And had those people just been humble, we would have even greater works than we had. But instead, they had Pythagoras, secret societies, and everything else because the public wasn't ready.
Yes.
And that's sad. Because we
Yeah.
tend to persecute that which we don't understand or we're not sure of or we don't know, instead of just being humble and saying, okay, I'm going to be receptive and I'm going to listen. I don't have to understand at the moment, but I'm going to engage and I'm going to listen and I'm going to learn.
Well, the beautiful thing that I've found over and over again is that the spirits that talk to us are happy to answer questions and give clarification. It's like I love having these conversations. That's why I get up at 3:30 in the morning. I spend a lot of deep dialogue with my soul, with the spirits of the house, with the trees, the plants, the flowers, even the floor of my home. I love the floor. It's a terracotta floor. I lay on it and I feel so much energy, and it's like it helps me get into a state of peaceful emptiness, but I feel the flow of life force coming through it. And I think, when people realize that there can't be anything created without God in it.
Exactly.
Because only God can hold the atoms together.
Create order out of chaos.
And that's the God's little trick is you're looking for me everywhere, but here I am. It's so hilarious. I mean, God's sense of humor is terribly sometimes wild and twisted, and sometimes just hilariously funny, but other times, so surprising it shocks you to your very core.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And then when you have that inner knowing and that inner understanding, there's like a divine alignment that your life aligns to, and then everything flows. And it's just so beautiful living life where things will flow one into another because of the trust that you have in Creator, the trust that you have in yourself, for allowing things to come through, for not being afraid to just share what you need to share, engage what you need to engage, and trusting that it will align and that it will flow.
The other thing I think is really important to share from my perspective is the deeper you get into the way of relating and living that we're talking about, the more true the North Star on your compass becomes, and you can recognize truth from falsity quite easily. When someone says, consciousness only comes from a brain, and without a brain, you're not conscious, you have I can give you 50 reasons that's wrong. It's like, well, who created brains, for one? Have you ever thought of that? How did they get here?
Yeah.
But one of the things I had listed for you to talk about is how shamanism in practice is medicine for the planet, the beings of nature, and it's medicine for people at this critical time in evolution. Now, we're kind of alluding to that in many, many ways, but because it's so important right now and the ecosystems are in such terrible shape while we spend all our money on rockets to get to Mars and all this other craziness, and billions on war efforts and pouring money into vaccines that aren't doing a damn thing for anybody, I think I would love to hear more about shamanism as medicine and for people right now and how that can really help us. Although we have talked a lot about it, I'd just love to open the door for you to share what's in your heart in that regard.
So what's in my heart in that regard is that we don't realize how powerful a being we are, period. We really don't. So let's even just go down to power of our words, okay? And the fact that you, myself, all of us, we're all vibratory beings. We respond to vibration. We respond to the sacred geometries of that vibration that amplifies in certain states and in certain manners, or when it's presented to us. If we focused on ourselves and the amplification of what we're projecting in such a positive way, each one of us becomes that beacon. And when you have a bunch of beacons going off collectively, it's powerful. I think it was Drumroll Melchizedek who used to hold heart circles, and he would have everyone gather in a circle, and he would everyone focus on, we need clouds, we need it to rain, we need it to rain, and it would become cloudy, and then it would rain. We are powerful beings in our vibration. So what happens with what's taking place today is everybody's focusing on what? Negativity, the drama, I feel oppressed, the toxicity of certain situations that are going on. And so their focus is not on what? Themselves. Their focus is not on what? The positivity, the being the beacon, the vibratory being that they are, that what they're saying actually amplifies out. So when they're saying, I hate this, I hate that, blah, 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 that's what's amplifying. That's what they're creating. And if you could just take it like a lighthouse, that stationary, prominent lighthouse, that's a beacon of light in the storm. And what are we doing when we see a lighthouse? We come out of the storm to find our way. So if we could just hold the state of our positivity and be the beacons that we are, to allow those who are going through their trauma and everything else to come out of the storm of it and to sit still and be that beacon with us, and stop allowing the circumstance to define how we feel, but be the force in the circumstance. You know, it only takes one person to say, you know what, I don't want to talk about all of this stuff. Time out. You know what? This isn't defining me. Here's where I stand on this. I'm going to stay positive. I'm going to be that beacon of light. Here's how I'm defining the world around me. Here's how I'm going to work through this. And I'm not going to let that set the tone of my day. I'm not going to let that set the tone of how I engage my relationships throughout the day. I'm not going to allow that to set the tone of how I treat others. That's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. And then what happens is that we take away the energy that we give to those who are toxic, because we're not engaged with their toxicity. We're not commiserating with it. We're not even giving it attention. You know, toxicity only exists because we give it attention. We give it the energy behind what it's doing because we're talking about it, we're engaged in it, we're consumed with it.
Well, another thing I'd like to throw on the table in that regard that a lot of people don't think of, which I know to be true because I can see it, is when we are engaging in what you're referring to as toxicity, we're actually creating beings and attracting beings that resonate with that level of fear, and they feed off of it. And, you know, this is one of the things when I'm running plant medicine ceremonies, I have to help people bring themselves out of fear and into a heart-centered state of mind, because I let them know, look, you don't want to invite the embodiment of your fears into your ceremony, because I can promise you, you're not going to like having to look at what you're creating.
Yes.
So my suggestion is you create exactly the experience you want to have in your heart now.
Exactly.
And be there.
Exactly.
And if anything shows up that's less than that, then ask your soul to show you the love that you cannot see. And that's how you learn to see the other side. So you know how to go from the dark to the light, and even beyond that to just the pure oneness of being without needing a light-dark polarity. And I think that's one of the gifts that Lao Tzu really gave us, that most people read the Tao Te Ching and other books by Lao Tzu, but they don't actually understand what he's really saying.
I agree.